anything outside of what it means to be a black male, then you're not a black male automatically.
That's true. But when it comes to sexuality, black women have more sexuality freedom than black men.
Well, all women have more sexuality than any man.
True.
Males have a very strict idea of masculinity, and females, they don't. It ranges. It's okay to be a lesbian, especially if you're hot. But it's never okay if you're gay. You're just not. It's never okay.
Yeah, that's true.
In either culture. I mean, they're starting to accept it more in white culture, for sure. But in black culture, things haven't changed that
And
all.
homosexual black people are accepted in white culture to a certain degree.
That whole thing just reminded me of a perfect example. My friend was watching Trapped in the Closet. And... Trapped in the Closet of all things. The whole music series thing by R. Kelly.
Yeah.
That thing came out when I was I was like a freshman in high school or something like that. Actually, it came out before then. I had to have been in 8th grade when that thing came out. Yeah, so that thing that series came out, and he bought the DVD like the other day, and he like watches it constantly. And he said his favorite line in that thing, and really keep in mind this was released back in the day, like a couple, like almost 10, 12 years ago now.
Yeah.
And that there's a line in it where R. Kelly says, he confronts some girl that was trying to take another girl from his best friend who had just gotten out of jail. So he was the man in this scenario, and you know, his friend was like trying to get his woman back, but the lesbian girl, I guess they're both, I don't even know, but the lesbian girl was with her, and they had to like fend him off, and R. Kelly was like, you know what, I'm just gonna let it be. You're lucky I like that type of thing. And you know, the fact that he said you're lucky I like that type of thing then is okay, and it was kind of eye opening, because if there were two guys, he would have shot one of them for sure, or both of them, because he had a gun out and he was, you know, threatening them. Is a story,
and
but that just goes to prove it's much more okay to be, you know, or a lesbian than it is to be a male and homosexual.
Coming back to my one friend that I lost over the gay marriage thing, is somewhere along the argument, he literally said gay people are sick, but if it's 2 women, I'm okay with that. I love that, in fact. But 2 men, no. And I just, like, do you hear yourself? Do you see that double standard you have just stated? But yeah, that's how prevalent it is.
You know, people just don't see it, and they don't really care either. They'll change eventually, maybe. Okay, now we're going to introduce a little segment with the working title, Today in Media. And for this segment, we have a clip that's pretty special. So I feel like you should just listen to it, and then we'll talk about it. I'm not going to give you too much more. Just listen to it, and then we'll talk about it.
King Noble, Black Supremacy. And I want to talk about the shooting of the white deputy sheriff in Houston, Texas. Reminds me of a Bob Marley song, I Shot the Sheriff. Very interesting. To me, what the Houston, Texas brutal execution before the public represents to me is its open season on killing whites and white police officers. And probably killing cops, period. It's open season. And then you just had Straight Outta Compton come out with this fuck the police and this revisitation of this rebellious energy towards the police department and the police. So now you got some black militant or some angry black man walks up and executes a cracker cop in broad daylight. This is real. It's open season on killing white people and cops. It's unavoidable, inescapable. It's funny that now we'll move into a time where the predator will become the prey. Yes, they said there will be a race war, and that we cannot win a race war. We can't win. We're outnumbered. They got weapons, they got drones, they got this, they got that. But I remind you of the buffaloes who outnumber the lions. They're bigger than lions, and they move in larger herds. But they're picked off by lions, one by one, picking them off. Today, we live in a time where the white man will be picked off, and there's nothing he can do about it. His day is up. His time is up. We will witness more executions and killing of white people and cops than we ever had before. We see with the Houston, Texas shooting, and we see with the news reporting shooting in Virginia. It's about to go down. It's open season on killing white people and crackers. The Black Lives Matter movement wasn't enough. We tried to appeal to them to let them know that this type of thing would come, it would happen. They thought they were indestructible and invincible because they took advantage of the weakness of black people for too long with all this police brutality. And now they've got black men out there that just can't take it anymore. And they're willing to act out. And they're willing to get you when you least expect it. Come at you when you're not thinking about it. It's not safe no more to be white in America. Lurking behind any corner could be an angry black man ready to take your ass out. It's a reality. It's open season on killing whites and police. And they better make some serious changes, social changes at this point, because it ain't looking good. And they gonna get embarrassed because just when they tried to make themselves look invincible and untouchable and we got this under control, clearly there's some black people out here that's about to show you that you might not just have it like that. It's King Noble Black Supremacy. Join my website, www.kingnobleBlackRulership.com.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
little
little rough, huh? That's okay, you know.
That's what we're here for.
But the way, I felt, I felt like you guys were big boys. You know, if you're big enough to listen to our first episode, which heavily featured the words nigger and nigga, then you should be able to handle this, you know, possibly scaring white people. You'll be all right. So, you know, this clip I think is pretty interesting. And that's what I'm going to say about it. Because, you know, when I first came across this, it was over Facebook. Some acquaintance posted it with the title, if you have any information, police are looking for him to question him. And this is why Obama and Democrats are to blame for the race war. Like, that's what this dude said. So I went on there and I watched the clip and I was like, okay. I came out of it and I just calmly explained. I was like, I can see why this can be, you know, offensive and worrisome, but it's important nonetheless. Because, a little side note, you know, above some of the comments read, like, I only watched 22 seconds of this and I turned it off because I can't listen to this idiotic drivel and blah, blah, blah. And then the other guy above me said, I only got 16 seconds in and I turned it off. And I was like, well, you guys are stupid. If you only listen to part of that clip, just the first part of it, then you're pretty stupid. Not because you're stupid for getting offensive. Like, be offended. Like, it's okay. You're allowed to feel in whatever type of way you feel about it. But I think it would be a mistake not to pay attention to messages like this. And this is what I said on the comment, you know. It's kind of like the school shootings. You know, when parents always want to know if there are any signs that the kid might snap. This is a big sign. It's like, of course, you know, if he puts out something that says he's going to do something and then 2 days later you hear about a mass shooting and he's involved, you might want to go back to the tapes and he told everyone about it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, first of all, not paying attention to clips like this would be a grave mistake on your part. You would get caught off guard. No one would know what was going on. Secondly, you know, I explained that, you know, it's maybe hard to listen to because, you know, he says some harsh things, you know, saying it's open season. That's pretty rough stuff. Yeah. But stuff like this had been said all throughout our nation's history, but it was said by white hooded people, and it was offensive, but it was still okay for the longest part. You know, but because he's a black guy, and he's not just black, like, he's dark skinned and he has real scruffy long hair. So he is like the embodiment of the black dangerous guy, you know?
Yeah.
And so watching him say these messages, it's a little scary to some people. But like I said, our nation had been putting up with hooded white people saying pretty much the same thing except for against black people, and it was A-okay. I'm not saying, times haven't changed, but if you are accustomed to dealing with that, and the fact that, let's be real, the KKK are still around, and the nation knows about it, everyone knows about it. There are towns where their KKK members are and even leaders within the KKK community are heads. They're heads of their local areas. And if it's okay for them to be heads of their local areas, how come they're not being questioned by the police? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Black people go missing all the time, but no one gives a shit or something. Like,
and
what's
the
going on with that?
KKK are a hate group. Like,
don't
get it twisted.
Yeah, there's nothing. They have nothing to accomplish, but essentially eliminating black people. Or minorities, really, homosexuals. Like, they just don't want them around. And they're essentially Nazis. They're American Nazis. They're just American Nazis without any power nowadays.
You know who the polar opposite of the KKK? The Black Panthers.
Yeah, so the Black Panthers is literally conveying the same messages that the KKK is doing it. Yeah, so he's a leader in the Black Panther community, and it's fair to be like, not everyone in the KKK is violent. Well, not everyone in the Black Panther Party is violent either. He just happens to be one of them. It's just what it is.
But yeah, you see how if you get scared from Black Panther, but you're okay with KKK, that's your double standard.
That's that prejudice we talked about earlier. If you might want to take a look at yourself.
And I've been talking to a lot of my white friends. And I was like, there's so much change that's happening in America, and black people are starting to feel left out. And I keep telling them, like, yes, you get those who like me, but I'm not the ones you worry about. There's people like this, whether they're serious or not. Malcolm X started off on something minor like this and had a hand in the creation of the Black Panther. And Malcolm X is not the first of its kind. He's the first documented of its kind. But we had even more extreme back in slavery where, I think it was like 3 weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, it was the anniversary of a mass massacre of slave owners by black people. It wasn't documented, but it happened. And so like...
It's not documented because they didn't want other slaves to get any ideas.
Exactly. So, like, this whole people denying that there's no racism are just simply that. They're living in denial. This is an issue that some black people will get to the point where they're like, okay, fuck it, I'm taking matters into my own hands. No one wants to listen to us. Everyone thinks we're lying about the cops and we're just hoodlums and we don't do nothing with our lives. This is what you create.
Yes, but to be fair, it's not just white people in the wrong. There's another thing I brought up when I first commented on that video. It's not Obama and the Democrats to blame for the race war. And black people aren't solely responsible for the race war. It takes two to tango. If you honestly look at history anyway, there's been so much happening against black people already that just because over the past 60 years or so that they decided to come out and start doing stuff, then all of a sudden it's a war, whereas beforehand it was just beat them into submission, but now it's a big deal and it's a problem because it's a race war going on.
And here's another thing you need to look out for. The only people talking about race war are the Republicans. The Democrats will just say, hey, this is not a race war. But if you listen to the Republicans, they're the ones like, they want a race war. They want to do this. It's all a race war. They're the only ones striking fear.
Yeah, they're getting really militant about this, and it's unnecessary hyping it up. Mm-hmm. And then people like this happen. But, besides all this disclaimer and stuff like that, I kind of wanted to talk about something else he said. One thing I thought was interesting that he would even bring up is he brought up the release of Straight Outta Compton. And yes, NWA was a huge deal in the rap and hip hop scene. They pretty much caused a social movement, with Fuck the Police and stuff like that. And yes, it is a rebellious spirit, but it's a rebellious spirit against a system that oppresses people.
It's a consequence of the system.
Yes, so I feel like if people are afraid of black people getting rebellious again, that's only because they're being oppressed. You see what I'm saying? The only reason why NWA released Fuck the Police and it was so powerful and popular is because they had been oppressed for so long. They used Fuck the Police as an anthem. Whereas they weren't being oppressed, then Fuck the Police would be an uncalled for song. It wouldn't be a big deal. But because that's a thing, people are getting afraid again. Mm-hmm. Now, and it's also interesting, too, because Antonio over here told me about how in some of the releases straight out of Compton, they had
not in some of them. It's like automated movie theaters.
They had real police show up and do security at these theaters.